Okay, back with part 2 on printmaking. We need to make some test prints. I've gotten in and I've carved out all the little tiny details with the smaller blade. Of course, there are different sizes of blades. Read them carefully. 1 is the smallest, and then it goes all the way up to 6, at least as far as what I got in the classroom. So the small details are a little harder to get. As you're carving away on these, it's really easy to bury the blade in this with the small one, and it can actually create a ripping pattern. The harder you press, the more the material kind of bulges, and you can actually use that to help control some of the cut lines. But I've done most of the cutting that I'm going to do, and I really need to see what I've got. And I can't do that until I've made a test print. So here's how I'm going to go about it. This is printer's ink. Block printing ink, and block printing ink, I have it labeled in the back, and the block printing ink is a little thicker than what we use for scratchboard, and it's you can print with paint, but paint is generally not thick enough. It's a mess. It can be a real mess and can ruin your art real fast. So here's what I recommend. You have a clear acrylic sheet of some sort. I have a whole box full of them. You lay a line out, it's just like toothpaste almost. You lay a line out, but you don't go all the way to the edges. I stop short of the edges. Put the cap back on. Don't just leave it around. A little bit of this will smear and get all over everything. Okay? This is a brayer. A roller, but we call it a brayer. And this brayer is used to roll out this ink and then roll the ink over the image. And you really, even with the pencil, won't be able to see what you got very well until you roll that black ink on. Now, there's some tricks to this. A lot of people just get in there and they just start smearing it like this. You don't want to do that. What you want to do is pull a little bit at a time down. Okay? So I pick it up each time, I'm putting it down, I'm rolling it out. You usually don't need all of that ink at once. I'll put this back on the back counter for people to make test prints when I'm done with this. Okay? You don't want to spread any more ink out in this because, what if not very many people are using it? Now, if I have this much spread out, and you can see it's kind of like smeared lines, that's not good. Okay? What I need to do is I need to spread this out to the point where it makes a tacky, sticky sound like sandpaper. And you can start to hear that. Okay? As soon as you get that sandpaper sound, you have the right amount of ink on this, okay? And I'm gonna roll it out just a little bit more. I think it's still a little too thick. If I get it too thick, it'll go into all the cracks and ruin my print. If I get it too thin, the print will be faded. You can use some of that to control aesthetic looks if you want to have a faded print, or if you want to have, a blurry print. You can add too much or too little, but once I got that sandpaper texture, which this looks pretty good to me, I'm gonna go ahead and roll it directly over my print now. So I should start to see this come together. Now I can already see mistakes that I've made. And that's common. That's why we do a test print. Okay? Give it a couple of rolls, and I think I'm probably good right about there. And I'm going to set this thing down, and here's the big one. Do not just set it down like this on the table, because what happens is it leaves black ink on it, and it smears everywhere, and it ruins prints. Instead, flip it upside down. That's why it's designed like this. Flip it upside down. It can be set right there, and you're good to go. So I'm going to pull the ink away now, and I'm going to grab a piece of paper for a test print, and I'm going to handle this very carefully. There's a couple of ways we can put this down. I do have some press blocks and things like that that I'll show you a little bit later, but for a small print like this, most of the time you can get away with holding the edges and very, 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 very carefully dropping it right in the center. Okay? Once you have that down, now you have to kind of line it up and try to get it as square as you can. Once you have that down, I'm going to press lightly on the back. Okay? Just make sure I've made firm contact. Then I'm going to take it off the edge and I'm going to flip it over. Now, you can use, good printmakers often use spoons, wooden spoons, and they will kind of rub the back side of this. You can use about any object. I'm out of wooden spoons right now. I could use this wooden back end or the back end of a pencil. What I most commonly will use is just a medium pressure with the back of my hand. The back of your hand has no oils on it. And as I kind of smear this around, you can start to see the ink pull through the paper a little bit. Even the friction of this, heating it up, will help to draw the ink into it. And there's different heights and areas inside of this that won't necessarily, you know, pick up unless you roll over it with something. You can use a brayer, but it doesn't give that friction that you need. A clean brayer, obviously. Okay, and that's probably good right about there. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna peel a corner. And I'm gonna peel it off slowly. If you rip it off too fast, you can end up smearing the print. So I'll just take one edge of this. I'll slowly lift it up. Okay, so here's my first test print. And it's not too bad. I noticed I kind of left this right here to just show you that, you know, you can make mistakes and you might need to erase that a little bit. I almost like the block. Maybe it's a happy accident. It's almost like a period. But I've got the image of the motorcyclist pretty good. His face is a little bit faded. I'm gonna have to work on that. I may have to add a little bit more ink the next time I do this. And I'm gonna need to wash this off in between. Don't ever assume that you can make multiple prints. This stuff starts to dry or tacky up real quick. So unless you're making 3 prints right in a row, you're gonna have to wash it off in between. If you let this sit for a day or two on your print, it can really affect the quality of it. So just take a little hot water and soap and wash it off the best you can and then dry it. Throw your paper towels away. I don't like a bunch of paper towels on the back there. And that's all. So I hope that you guys have a good time creating these. This is the irony print. You might be doing vector form, or you might be doing positive negative space. Any of that is fine. Just make sure that you do a couple of test prints to give it a clean look. When you are 100% finished with it, you're going to sign with pencil. And so your artist's signature will go down, and you'll include a date as well. So I'm going to include 2017 on that in pencil. You can actually give the month and the day a print is made. That's normal. You need to do that. So for me, I'm going to just put 10/20, okay, and leave it at that. All right, that's how you sign a print. It's always in pencil, and it's always with the date. Because you make multiples, you need the specific date on it. All right, have fun.